Episode 154 of the Interpretation Station is called to order. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to be just a very brief intro from me today because today's episode it's a recording of the Interpretation Station Sunday and at 6 workshop that I held on Sunday, on Sunday the 4th of December. So we featured 3 statements for interpreters with French, Spanish, and Russian. So from Spanish, it was all from the general debate, this year's general debate in September. From Mexico, we had the statement by the Mexican foreign minister. We had for France, Emmanuel Macron. With Macron, if you really want to push your interpreting to the next level, then you really want to practice any of his speeches that you can lay your hands on. So we've got him. And then we finish up with Belarus, the foreign minister of Belarus. So as usual, I will leave all the links to the original statements in the description box, together with the links to the transcripts. These are pretty easy to find because there's general debate. So you just go to the general debate page, website, and they're very easily accessible there. And I'll also leave a couple of other useful web pages that I mention in the course of the workshop. And so just to remind you, just before you start watching, just make sure you go and smash the like button, subscribe and share, and please do comment if you hear any interesting suggestions, or if you've got suggestions of your own for some of the vocabulary that we run into, please do feel free to put it into the comments. And so without any further ado, let's go and see the workshop. Okay, so if you all just agree to being recorded, that'd be very nice. Okay, so here we go. Almost forgot to record. This is for the benefit of the episode. Anyway, so Rebecca, we've got the Mexico here, general debate from 22nd of September this year, Mexican foreign minister. And so Rebecca, you get us started.
Okay. President, distinguished colleagues, please accept the warmest greetings of President Andrés Manuel López Obrador and all the people of Mexico.
Go on, do the next para as well, yeah.
In 2022, we're facing one of the most serious crises in recent times, which has had an impact on the global order, international peace and security, the economy, the supply of basic commodities and essential services.
Okay, that's all good so far. I was just going to say reciban. Don't let that throw you off. Okay, so Rebecca did it very well. Said, please accept cordial greetings. Don't feel that you have to replicate something like that always with an imperative. Okay, obviously that's an imperative. Please accept. So you can just say, I bring you cordial greetings. I convey to you cordial greetings, because I know if I was a bit and when there's a bit less experience, for example, I hear that you feel you have to replicate the imperative, but it just doesn't. Unless the way Rebecca put it was very good, but you can just feel free to say something like, "I bring you, I convey to you." Okay, that's the sort of thing, the tiny little thing at the start that can just completely derail you right from the off, and after that you just slightly shell-shocked and trying to get back on. So don't let little things like that. Let's see, we face one of the greatest, most serious crises in recent times, which is impact of world order. Yeah, basic productos básicos, you said basic commodities, you say basic products, I think. Abastecimiento, yeah, supply of basic products. Keep going, do the next one as well, Rebecca.
Okay. Humanitarian needs have multiplied, inequality has grown, and the effects of climate change have worsened. In addition to the health security weakened by the pandemic, there is a serious threat to food security for large swathes of the population in the poorest and most marginalized countries.
Okay, that's very good. I'd have probably said something very similar. Also, by the way, feel free to stop me anytime you've got any questions, any contributions of your own to make. Se han agravado, also for aggravar, say you want a good sort of set of synonyms. So she said worsened, have exacerbated, have compounded. Those are 3 good synonyms to have. The one tiny little thing I'd say here, a la seguridad sanitaria debilitada por la pandemia. So you went straight in with "in addition to." Now, theoretically, if you were listening to that coming through the earphones, you're taking a guess there. You don't know exactly where that's going to go. So when you just hear that "a la seguridad sanitaria," okay, my inclination would be to just start the sentence with healthcare security has been weakened by the pandemic, and then how would you continue it to give that same notion?
After, let's say, so the needs, humanitarian assistance needs have multiplied, inequality has grown, and the effects of climate change have worsened. But does the Allah not suggest that it's an addition of some kind? Instinctively, it feels like there's something being added to it afterwards.
Probably, you could have the guess, but I think that there are other ways the sentence could still go in theory.
Okay, so health security has been weakened by the pandemic, in addition to a serious threat to food security.
Okay.
For broad swathes of the population, etc.
Yeah, something that's good. I was thinking I would have said, I often talk about coupled with, when it's something bad. So healthcare security has been weakened by the pandemic, coupled with a grave threat to food security for broad swathes, broad sectors of the population. One of those two. So, okay, all right. Carola, then, would you like to give the next little section a try?
Moreover, the current context characterizes itself by an increase of geopolitical tensions between the main powers, a new war career or armament career, and
a new arms race.
A new arms race, and the worsening of diverse armed conflicts around the globe.
Okay, could one of the English natives give me the best solution for recrudecimiento?
Resurgence?
Resurgence, exactly.
Taking notes here.
Yeah. Resurgence of armed conflicts around the world. Carola, just do the next paragraph as well.
When it seemed that we would overcome the worst of the COVID-19 pandemic, war in Ukraine emerged, creating or giving rise to the risk of a nuclear accident and potential catastrophic consequences beyond European safety and stability.
Okay, let's okay, so cuando parece que vendría la recuperación? So the thing with vendría is here you have in the Spanish the syntax is different to what it is like what we would say in English. So in English an English speaker would say, just when it seemed the recovery, so recuperación, go for recovery. Did you say recovery?
I phrase it differently. When it looked like we were overcoming the worst.
Okay. You see how you turned it around.
Yes,
right.
I made a phrasal verb out of it.
I mean, generally, so for recuperación, I would go with, again, your first best solution is recovery. So I was going to say, so just when a recovery from the worst impacts of the COVID pandemic was coming. So in English, we would obviously leave the verb till the end, right? But so if you want to just get the one way of, obviously you're quite in the situation in the exam, for example, you're obviously feeling quite nervous, and you want to try and just get those words out the way. Generally you don't want to memorize too much to leave to the end of the sentence. So one thing you could always do is you just say something along the lines of, just when it seemed there would be a recovery from the worst effects of the COVID pandemic, then you had the war in Ukraine. So it's okay. So the register might seem a notch down in your version from the original, but so you've got to make a choice basically. Either you stick to the register of the original, which is going to mean leaving those verbs till the end, but that takes a bit of a toll. At least it does on me, right? So a way of getting around that is, just using these expressions. There would be a recovery, and then you had the war in Ukraine, and that way you're sort of processing all those words as they come along, and you're just sticking to the original syntax. So again, it's a matter of personal choice. Me, I tend to like to just get things out the way immediately, just process them. But so it's your call. It's good to be able to do it both ways, really. With the risk of nuclear accidents, potential disastrous consequences, besides beyond the security and stability in Europe. Brilliant. Okay, so I'll hand it over to Dwayne.
Okay, we are going to start with además.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, in addition to the high cost of human lives and the impact on millions of internally displaced persons and refugees in other countries, the war in Ukraine has affected the availability of food and fuels and has upended the global economy, has polarized the multilateral system, and has generated a climate of mistrust and international uncertainty.
Okay, very good. Just, I think, afectaciones. I think that's to do with financial payouts to IDPs. No, do we have a Spanish native among us who can maybe clarify this? As I was reading it as, in addition to the high cost in human lives, and
I would say suffering.
Is it suffering? You don't think it's financial?
Well,
Afectaciones.
You might be right. You might be right. And the suffering of millions of IDPs and refugees. You might be right, actually. Okay, someone can look it up and then.
Es una suerte de impacto, si no me equivoco.
I thought it was a financial sort of. Yeah. Okay.
Like una indemnización, algo así.
That's what I thought. Yeah, I was sort of thinking in terms of financial payout. Giving people, basically just give people
like
money.
Some sort of compensation. Okay.
Okay, so one of you have a look, and then let me just go. Trastocada has upended the world economy, so upended, disrupted, derailed. These are good synonyms again to have. Okay. What did you say? Polarized international, generated a climate of mistrust and international uncertainty. Cool. Personas desplazadas internas, you said, what did you say?
Internally displaced persons.
So just go with IDPs. Okay?
IDPs. Okay.
Yeah, just go with IDPs. You don't need to give the full You don't need to give the full name. You can. That's one of those expressions that you can just go straight in with the acronym.
Okay. Good. All right. So this war, in addition to other unresolved armed conflicts, will severely hurt harmony and international order based on international law, and above all, the purposes and principles of the UN Charter.
Okay. Again, this is somewhere you could say this war. If I was to hear Sisuma I would probably say coupled with other armed conflicts. I can't remember that continue unresolved, for example, sin solución. Lacera gravemente la armonía. I guess you would say something of gravely.
Seriously harm.
Seriously harming, hurting, undermining. Hurt is a word that I try. We say it all the time in English. In things like, hurting the economy or hurting feelings, whatever.
But I see where you're going. Undermining is I get the vibe from that.
Yeah, I think all those solutions could work here. The international law-based international order, I guess we might say, but no, what you said is fine. The international order based on international law, in particular. Okay, los principios y propósitos. That's very important. UN Charter language. The principles and purposes. Okay, you have to know that. That's like one of the main chapters in the charter. Okay, just do that final paragraph, this section, Dwayne, then we're going to skip down. No, yeah, good. Just do this. Mexico como Estado.
Mexico, as a state that is accountable and committed to the promotion of peaceful solutions to disputes, turns to this General Assembly with the proposal of dialogue and peace in Ukraine, which I will address now.
Okay. Yeah, como Estado responsable, I think you just say as a responsible state. I know sometimes they do use the responsabilidad as for accountability. Here, I don't think you have to play around with it. Here, I think you just say responsible, committed. Okay, this is a very important idea, again, to be familiar with, that's drawn from the Charter. Solución pacífica de las controversias. So peaceful dispute resolution, peaceful dispute settlement. That's one of the key concepts. And so, and have you all been reading your charter?
Yes,
Have you
and in
been-
fact, I think it says Pacific.
There you go.
Solution
Dwayne's
in the
been doing his
charter.
homework. Okay, there you go.
But I wasn't sure if I should, go that far.
In an exam, I would show, if you're doing the exam, I would show off and say Pacific Dispute Settlement,
No
just to
way.
show that I know when to use the word Pacific. But yeah, feel free to just say peaceful as well. But that's a very important, that should trip off the tongue, whatever, and whichever words you want to use: peaceful dispute settlement, peace dispute resolution, whatever. Yeah, well, maybe brings to the General Assembly, to the GA, proposal for dialogue and peace in Ukraine that I will now set forth, that I will now go into. So this is the Mexican solution, this is what I wanted to sort of focus on. Let's just give me a sec here. Okay, so Sterling, my man, how about you tell us what's going on?
All right. So the situation in Ukraine, the Security Council has not been able to fulfill the mandate conferred to it in the UN Charter due to not having been able to prevent war nor take measures to put an end to armed aggression. And even less so, was it able to kick off a diplomatic process in the search of a solution through dialogue and negotiation.
Okay, so the first thing I say, this is quite a long sentence. So again, this is one of those instances in Spanish where I would be really looking to break it up. There's a couple. Let me see if I got a little pen here that I can use. Like, for example, I could maybe break it up here, and maybe I could break it up here. You can see that it's something like the Security Council has been unable to cumplir, to fulfill, like you, Sterling, said, to deliver on. If nothing else comes, I'll say comply with, because comply is not the best, right? But obviously the letters in comply are quite similar to cumplir. I like to deliver on things generally. That's what I think sounds most stylish. But if it doesn't,
we also say discharge?
you can discharge a mandate. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things you could live up to the mandate, make good on the mandate. Lots of things you could say. Conferred to it by the UN Charter. So again, here I might say it's not been able to prevent war or take any measures to put a stop to the armed aggression. And again, maybe here, nor has it been able to channel any diplomatic process to reach a solution through dialogue and negotiation. So certainly with Spanish, that's one of the key things. With Spanish and with Macron, one of the key things is to break up the massive great sentences and make them more manageable. So, okay, so and do the next paragraph as well, Sterling.
It has also not been able to ensure that all necessary humanitarian assistance was provided, nor has it been able to openly support the work of the Secretary General and other stakeholders to manage the access to grain and fertilizer markets of grains and fertilizers produced by the Russian Federation and Ukraine. Okay,
that's good work. Again, if he's, I don't know how fast he speaks in the original, but again, Secretary General, you can just shorten that to the SG. Okay, other stakeholders, actors, both work fine. Gestionar el acceso, to manage access to markets for grain and fertilizer produced. Federation, you can just say Russia, to be honest. I wouldn't bother with Federación de, if you're in a hurry, okay, just say produced by Russia and Ukraine. Again, so just stop me, anyone, if you've got any questions as we're going along, okay? Let's go back to you, Rebecca, then. Ante esta parálisis.
Faced with this paralysis, we had to resort to the General Assembly at a special emergency session in which Mexico, together with France, set out the appropriate framework for channeling humanitarian aid via Resolution E11.2. which no doubt has proven useful, but which has shown to be clearly lacking given the scale of destruction and suffering caused by this war.
Okay. Again, this is another quite long sentence. I would sort of be tempted to maybe break it up around this point, you know. Given this paralysis we've had to, what did you say for recurrir a?
Resort to?
Yeah, I
Or
guess
would that be more
resort to refer to the general. Oh, okay. In una sessione especial. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, resort to maybe. Yeah, let's
or
resort to
convene
general.
or something? Convene a special assembly or a special session?
In a special emergency session where France. Yeah, I think resort to is fine. I mean, you can see, you can sometimes say recur to these.
Oh,
Resort. Good.
To turn to.
To turn to, yeah, that's good actually. That's good. We have to turn to the General Assembly. That's maybe better actually. In which France, together with Mexico, with France, put forward adequate framework for channeling humanitarian. Okay.
Okay, I got it rolling.
Yep.
To come before, and we have to come before, you know, the General Assembly.
Yeah, that would work. That would go. That would work. Yeah. This has certainly, yeah, sin duda. I think it's not as like, I think it's like this has certainly been useful. I think sin lugar de duda, I think is like there's no doubt. There's absolutely no doubt. It's a minor point, because I think there's the same thing in French. There's like sans doute, which I've been told isn't like as strong as without doubt, that it means like probably in English. Where there's also sans. There's something a bit stronger in French than just sans doute.
Sans aucun doute.
Yes, that's it. So sans aucun doute is without doubt. If it's just sans doute, it's more like probably. And I think the same applies to Spanish. It's a bit of a nuance, but it's all right to know, handy to know.
I think that certainly for sin duda would be a good fit.
Okay, cool. Which
Sin
certainly,
lugar a duda is very adamant. It's like
right,
there's no
so
doubt whatsoever.
It's not as sort of categorical, right? La Estela, yes, I think Estela is the outbreak of destruction. Is that, if I'm not mistaken? But again, I think what you said, Rebecca, sounded fine.
I misread that. I thought that was scale.
Right. I mean, it sounded fine. I think Estela is the outbreak. Okay, let's.
Estela technically is the wake. Right?
Given the is it the wake? Is it? Oh, there you go. Given the okay. But it's clearly insufficient given the probably the wave of destruction might sound more English, right? In the wake of the destruction and suffering left by the war. Go on, Rebecca, do the next paragraph as well.
Okay. For these reasons, the President of Mexico, aware of the individual and collective responsibility we have,
good,
proposed that a committee or caucus of heads of state and government encourage and support the efforts of the Secretary General to promote measures for boosting confidence between the Russian Federation and Ukraine. It's a bit long, this sentence, isn't it? Where would you break it up?
We'll get to the end of it and then.
Okay, yeah. Which will.
I would perhaps break it up here. Que permitan.
Yeah. This in turn will create the conditions to bring together the mechanisms required for a peaceful solution to the controversies indicated by the UN Charter.
Okay. For these reasons, the President of Mexico, aware of the individual collective responsibility we have, runs that the Committee, Caucus of Heads of State and Government, encourages and supports the efforts of the SG. That was all good. That half, I'd perhaps break it up here as well. And so, you know, often with the Spanish also when you break up those sentences, you sort of start the new sentence if it's like a para, like, and this to promote. Okay, this is an important idea. Medidas de fomento de la confianza. Okay, this should be, again, one of those things that just trips off the tongue. Confidence building measures. You can call them CBMs even. That might impress. CBMs are. There's also TCBMs, trust and confidence build, transparency and confidence building measure. But here, okay, that's what's again a set phrase, sort of between, just again, drop the federación, just between Russia and Ukraine, and this to generate conditions to acercar a las partes. Yeah, it means to move the parties towards peaceful dispute settlement mechanisms as set forth in the charter.
Could it be suggest in this case?
Say again?
Could it be suggest in this case to suggest to the parties?
Yeah, but then what are you suggesting to them? Yes,
Well,
the idea is you're
to
moving
create the
them.
conditions in order para acercar a las partes a los mecanismos. Well, okay, sorry, acercar a los mecanismos, no acercar
Yeah,
mecanismos.
you see what I
Okay.
So sometimes I find in Spanish they choose weird. That's one of the things in Spanish going to English. Sometimes just the choice of verb can be a bit weird, and you feel like you have to replicate the original verb. You know, up here, can you see my pen, right? This is another example, like, ha logrado encaminar proceso diplomático uno. I can't help feeling in English, it said they haven't been able to launch any diplomatic process. And that is sort of encaminar is like that of channeling. I mean, okay, you can say it, you know, we haven't been able to channel any diplomatic process. And then here, this acercar a las partes, move it towards the peaceful. We were talking about how they haven't been able to generate conditions where the parties would draw on the mechanisms, would refer to the mechanism. Somehow, sometimes that's one thing, and again in Spanish, is just the verb, the choice of verb in Spanish is a bit weird. So again, controversias, Rebecca, dispute, that's very important.
Right.
Okay, and so let's, who's Sterling? Go ahead.
This would be to offer a, sorry, I'll start. This would be to propose a diplomatic channel in addition to the existing ones to allow the parties in conflict to interact with the aim of easing tensions and guiding mediation.
Yeah, okay, so I'd say, whenever I hear se trata de, I just keep it simple. I would say it's a matter of. I mean, what you say is okay, but sometimes I find with certain expressions, it's just how you just have one immediate go-to in English, then you don't have to think about it. You know, it's like a matter of offering a diplomatic channel complementary to the existing ones. I think you just need to interact with the parties in conflict. Okay. So that's almost, in conflicto is almost redundant, I would also say in English. I think you'd almost say just the parties.
Yeah. To interact with the parties in
or
conflict.
the belligerents, if you want one word, with the view to reducing tensions and channeling mediation, promoting, again, fostering mediation, shall we say. Again, slightly weird choice of verb. Encauzar la mediación. Do the next paragraph as well.
Quick question. Se
Yes?
trata de, when it says se trata de ofrecer, could it be also, could we also say something like the purpose hereof is, or is that too far away from the...
You know, you could say that, right? But just when I'm a bit, you know, when I'm in the sort of robot state of interpreting, when I hear that expression, I don't want to have to think about it, really. I just want to have one immediate thing, because it's sort of a, you know, it's not that important.
Well, because that is the immediate thing that came to my mind. So I was wondering if that would be something that is acceptable or not.
It's not wrong. It's not wrong, you know. It's just, for me, that's when I hear that, I just like to say, oh, okay, it's a matter of, and then just carrying on. So
thank you.
Yeah, so go on, Sterling.
This proposal has been shared over the past few days with the Secretary General and with the involved parties, as well as with the delegations of India and the Holy See. This being said, President López Obrador considers that in the aforementioned committee, along with the Secretary General of the UN, Antonio Guterres, should also be present His Excellency Narendra Modi and His Holiness Pope Francis.
Okay, with the SG, the parties, and you say the parties involved, Santa Sede, the Holy See, that's very good. This is a point, toda vez que you might want to put a full stop there. You see that's a sort of
Yep.
place that's begging for a full stop. You could just say President López Obrador believes that this in dicha comitiva deberían participar junto con. So you could almost flip that around. You could say that this committee should include the Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, Narendra Modi, and His Holiness the Pope Francis. And again, some of those names you could just sort of shorten a bit. You could just say the Secretary General, His Excellency Narendra Modi, and the Pope. You could probably just say for Su Santidad el Papa Francisco. If you're in a hurry, you could just say and the Pope, full stop. Okay, and then just finish us off here, Dwayne. Proseguiremos. In fact, no, sorry, Carola, why don't you finish us off? I skipped you, so.
Sure. The necessary consultations will continue to be taken place with the sole purpose of being able to make a contribution as an impartial player and a player of good faith in order to provide broad support to the efforts and positive actions taken by the SG and the caucus. We hope that the that the building of said committee shall be able to move forward with the support of the UN member states.
Okay, I would just keep with the word, just stick with the syntax here. We will pursue the necessary consultations with the sole purpose of de poder contribuir. I would be inclined to just to delete poder, just with the sole purpose of contributing as an impartial, good faith actor to generating broadest possible support a las gestiones y buenos oficios. So los buenos oficios, that's a set phrase, the good offices. It's called the good offices. So if you don't work at the UN, you might not be familiar with that expression, but that's one of the main mechanisms that the Secretary General can draw on when mediating, okay, his good offices. Las gestiones, I will often to the efforts and good offices, or if you want to get really sort of high to the representations and good offices, to make, it's quite an old, this is an old style English expression, to make representations towards someone, okay? I think I read Winston Churchill's biography several years ago, and he always talks about making representations to other diplomats, to the, it was all about World War II, well, funnily enough, being Churchill.
We use that a lot in court here.
And he's always talking about making representations here and there, and so that's one of the sort of expressions that I sort of use because I like it. Under the caucus, cuya conformación, whose composition, I think was the word you were looking for, would say,
Yes.
we hope will proceed with the support of UN member states. Okay, so that is, I encourage you to try and go and practice the full statement. As I say, there's some useful stuff in that Mexican statement. Nuclear disarmament, they're quite big players there. You see they're quite influential. They have something called, if you ever hear about the Tratado sobre la Prohibición de las Armas Nucleares, so they were one of the initiators of this resolution that was passed in the General Assembly. It's called the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. It's short form, it's the Ban Treaty. It's a complete, I mean, it's not a waste of space, but the thing is, it went to the General Assembly, which is all great, but General Assembly decisions aren't binding. Basically, all the permanent 5 in the Security Council opposed it, so it just, it didn't even get to the Security Council. So that's a sort of thing that gets adopted in the General Assembly, but will never, well, maybe it will, maybe one day it will. But if you ever hear about the Ban Treaty, and you do hear about it here and there, actually, that's what it is. And that treaty is about, as it says, just completely banning nuclear weapons. So, so give that a try. So, for the benefit of those viewing on the YouTube channel, I say I will put all the links to all the text that we're doing in the description box below. Now we are going to turn to the Spanish, the French text. Okay, so I'll just give you a minute to pull up the French text and get ready. I will let me just find the French text as well. Okay, so let me just share the screen. Let me bring up. So Macron, we're doing Macron, okay. Have any of you had the dubious pleasure of interpreting Macron?
Yes, I have.
Oh, you have, haven't you?
I
Was that the
did
same meeting
in
that we...
Egypt. Yeah.
Okay, quickly tell us about your impressions of that, of having to do that.
Well, it wasn't the plenary. It was one of the panel discussions, and he just goes tearing off. He speaks at an incredible speed with these like lovely sentences that are really, really dense, and you really have to put your head down and process. So.
And he'll give you a text, but he won't stick to the text.
I mean,
He'll just...
yeah. If you're in plenary, but we didn't have a text.
You didn't get a text. Well, because
No.
he submitted one. Well, his main statement for in the plenary. I was in the meeting where I was in the meeting where he spoke at the plenary, but it wasn't my half hour. That was my coffee half hour. So my booth mate had him. So they did give a text, but he just went all over the place. Just there. In the end, it was like there was just almost just no point having the text. It was just like just throw it out. And I know me and Dwayne have done a Macron episode somewhere in the early hundreds, maybe, and it's on most.
We should have a T-shirt that says "We survived."
We survived. That's right. I survived interpreting Macron, and it's just so difficult. As I said to Dwayne, it's just exhausting on your brain.
It is.
Just
it is
trying to stick with these sentences that just go all over the place. God.
It's
okay.
paragraph long sentences that are just all over the place, and then you'll go racing off in another direction.
Yeah,
What?
yeah. But it's very important to practice him, because I get the impression, okay, so he's been around for quite a few years now, and so all his people are in place, and I get the impression they almost mimic him. I think his style gets mimicked a lot, perhaps, by other French bureaucrats.
Well, I was in. So that was a panel discussion, and then a few days later, I was in plenary, and we had the Luxembourgish, I think,
Yes,
Prime Minister, and I was the one who did that. And I didn't realize anyone could speak faster than Macron.
But it was quite a similar style. Oh, was it not quite a similar style?
It was similar in that I had the text, and the text was useless. So.
And there was also the Lebanese, I don't know if he was the prime minister, spoke. And I would remember thinking, I was listening to him, and it was just so similar in style to Macron, the whole presentation, the hand gestures. So you can see all those statements on the, I guess, COP, what one was it? COP 40?
27. It was 27.
Not 4, jumping ahead a bit. COP 27. So I would, use that in your practice, by the way. You know, because there's a good chance you're going to get like a statement at some of those 6 that you're going to get in the exam that might be about climate change. So that's good material, really good material to practice. Okay, well, let's without further ado, let's get started on him. And well, Malika, why don't you kick us off then, since you're the expert on Macron?
Big words. Secretary and President, it's an honor for me to
Can you see this? Have I shared? Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I've also got the PDF up.
Okay, so all the rest of you can see it anyway. That's good. Okay.
It's an honor for me to speak before this assembly and convey the voice of France. Currently, I'm thinking about those who have fought in my country, but also elsewhere in the world, so that France can be free. I'm also thinking of those who thought that the destiny of Europe could not be indifferent to them, and of those, whether they came from Africa, Asia, Oceania, or the Americas, because part of their freedom, just like the freedom of the world, depended on that.
Okay, so notice, by the way, so this is sometimes with Macron, that's something you'd have to do. Again, let me just find my annotate thingy. Just a sec. So notice how, hang on, my battery, I need to, so my battery doesn't run out.
Yes, I want to know, how did you know, because that's worth gold, how did you know to start Assur aussi? How did you know to start that with? And I'm also thinking of,
that's what I was going to say. Yes,
I didn't know that. Oh wait, he's still referring to that. What indicated to you that was
the repetition of the sentence structure, because he had just said "je pense à ce."
Yeah. You sometimes
then,
have to
and there's
hold
no
that.
other
You
verb
have
coming, so I
exactly.
thought,
That's it. Je pense à ceux qui se sont battus dans mon pays, à ceux aussi qui ont estimé. So for the ease of understanding, so she's thrown in that I'm thinking again. So
Okay.
you see, he does it again later on. Je pense à ceux qui ont décrit notre charte et bâti, blah blah blah. So, by the way, just
likes that, the sort of the repeating elements, I
he
find.
does. Yeah, yes, very much.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, and you're right. Sir would absolutely refer to what came before. So that was the clue there. Okay, very good.
By the way, can anyone tell me who Madame la Secrétaire Générale Adjointe des Nations Unies? Can anyone tell me what that is in English?
Under Secretary General.
Okay, correct. Okay, so you have at the UN, you have what under Secretary Generals, and you have Assistant Secretary Generals. So you have something. So you have the sous-secrétaire. It's confusing in French because the sous-secrétaire général is the ASG, and the secrétaire général adjoint is the under-secretary general. It's very annoying. It's very confusing, but it's not impossible. You might, you know, in exams they have been known to take General Assembly statements. So again, you want to sort of know. You want to just do a little bit of homework, you know, and learn a bit about the organizational structure of the UN so that these things don't catch you out. So go on, just finish the paragraph, could you, Malika?
I'm thinking of those who wrote our charter and who built the walls of this organization to prevent the worst once it had happened 2 times before in the 20th century, inflicting upon humanity immeasurable suffering.
Okay, now just one thing here, indicible souffrance. Can anyone give me a better solution for indicible souffrance?
Indescribable, unspeakable.
Unspeakable. Yeah.
Untold suffering.
Untold.
Now, because I think
Untold,
that
good,
if you look
yeah.
at the charter, at the preamble to the charter, they talk about something like inflicting untold suffering on mankind twice in our lifetimes. So yeah, that I think he's using specific UN charter language there. So just basically to repeat,
untold sorrow, yeah.
Untold sorrows that he talks about, right. So again, just to say though, it's just know your charter language. Fine. Stephanie, are you wanting to try?
Hey, I can.
Okay, go ahead. N'oublions jamais cette dette.
Let's never forget this debt. It serves the interest of all our country. Shows us great work. It reminds us that only a legitimate and lasting power of the nation can only a legitimate and lasting power, which is that of the nation. Oh no, I think I missed that.
So it reminds us that there's no other legitimate, lasting center of power que celui que les nations décident.
Then that decided in unanimously by the nation.
Yeah.
It tells us that the universality of our organization is not at the service of a hegemony, nor of a geopolitical oligarchy. However, this heritage, which is our organization, just as our choices as nations are today confronted with an alternative.
Okay, let me just. It's a bit faint because I don't know where you're speaking from. It's a bit faint, but let me give you my version of what I would probably do. I'd probably say, let's never forget this debt. It serves the interests of all our countries and shows us the path to peace. It reminds us that there's no other center of legitimate, lasting power, durable, often sustainable. It depends, you got the objectif de développement durable, that's sustainable. Often you often talk about le paix durable, the lasting peace. that's better than sustainable peace. Here, I think you could lasting powers maybe makes a bit more sense in English than that of nations that decide sovereignly by uniting. It tells us that the universality of our organization is not at the service of any hegemony of any geopolitical oligarchy. You said interesting just for or. You said however for or. See, that's one of those words I tend to just skip when I hear it in French. You know, like when they say en effet and or, I tend to just skip that. What would you say is the best English equivalent for or, Stephanie? Would you just leave it out, or would you say however?
I went with however. I think it helped me particularly to glance through the next words that come up and deliver.
Okay. This heritage, our organization, like our choices as nations, are today face an alternative. Okay, what we'll do here, just give me a sec. We might skip, I'm going to skip down a bit because I might skip the bit, as I say, where he talks about climate change, because that's one of his sort of main themes. That's one of it. Okay, let's try go down here. You're still following me right on the screen share, yes?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to give it to so Stephanie, if you could just turn your mic off, if you could just mute. Okay. Rebecca, shall we go back to you?
Yep, where from? Face aux crises?
Face aux crises.
Okay. Faced with crises, climate change, the pandemic, soaring food prices, it's always the most vulnerable who are the most affected.
Okay, so you said they use this quite a bit in French, dérèglement climatique. So I think you can say climate change, or sometimes I see guys saying climate disruptions. But yeah, just be aware that that is an expression they like to use in French, dérèglement climatique, and just be aware, just so that it doesn't throw you again, doesn't sort of derail you when you're interpreting. Carry on.
These threats are still here, and on top of that, terrorism, which affects, among others, the Sahel as well as the Middle East, nuclear proliferation in Iran as well as North Korea, we still have not managed to contain it.
That we still, yep, I think that's the nuclear proliferation in Iran and North Korea that we still haven't been able to endiguer, to contain. I think I've also, to check is another solution I sometimes use for endiguer. Go on.
These are our emergencies. And this list, this description that I've just given you is not exhaustive, but they are each time, or the result of deep failings of our international system, which has propped up ushered in the benefits of globalization, but which has not managed to contain its failures, its threats, its imbalances, or the consequence of divisions between us.
Okay, so that's a typical sort of Macron sentence. Et à la cavalcade, yeah, and to this cavalcade. I guess you could say we have that word in English, right? A cavalcade. It's not, the description I've given is not exhausted, but each time it's the result of défaillance, failings, shortcomings is another good synonym for défaillance of our international system, which has been able to, accompagner, the sort of the stock solution for accompagner is usually support. Again, maybe it's one of those words you shouldn't give too much thought over. You shouldn't sort of, be too obsess over it too much, and just if nothing else comes to you right in the moment, just go with support the benefits of globalization, but has been unable to contain, the what did you say for les fractures? Ces fractures.
Breakdowns, did I? I think I just said failures again.
Failures, right?
Yeah.
It's fractures, it's rifts, maybe. It's threats and it's imbalances. Okay. Okay, let's go on. Dwayne, notre just give me a sec. Let's skip the next paragraph. Go down to face à la crise alimentaire mondiale.
Okay. Face à la crise alimentaire. Okay. In light of the global food crisis, France has already doubled its funding to the World Food Program.
Okay, very good. WFP. Again, that's one of those organizations that you can just go straight in with the acronym.
We have established with the EU the corridors of solidarity, which allow us to provide more than 10 million tons of cereals by land since last spring. This has
I think this is a thing they first maybe mentioned in well, yeah, it's these solidarity corridors I've heard them talk about recently.
This has also been complemented by the July 22nd agreement, allowing us to, thanks to the work of the SG, to also provide 2.4 million tons through the Black Sea, and this will continue.
I like how you put evacuate. You've just gone with provide.
I'm trying to think of
I'm trying to think of maybe a better. Maybe it's to ship, which has allowed us to ship to clear 10 million tons. But again, for want of the best word, then you want a word that's fairly versatile and that more or less gets the meaning across, which is what provide does. So if anyone can give me a better solution for evacuate in this context, do say. But I think I don't know, provide, ship, transport, transfer.
We have also spearheaded a farm.
Oh, that's nice.
Which allows us to provide vulnerable countries at a low cost, without policy conditions, a way to invest in the agricultural production of countries that want to emerge from this dependence.
Okay, I mean, the thing I was going to say for Nous Avons Porté, I was going to say we've sponsored the farm initiative, but we've spearheaded the farm initiative, Food and Agriculture Resilience Initiative, which allows us to supply the most vulnerable countries at low cost, without political conditions. By the way, another synonym. I always like saying without any strings attached. That can sometimes get you out of that's a quick way sometimes of saying getting across that notion in quite a versatile way, and to invest in agriculture of countries that wish to sortir de la dépendance. What would we say in English?
I guess it'd be more independent.
Break free from their dependence. Something along those lines. Okay, Larissa, welcome.
Hello, thank you for inviting me.
Oh, you're welcome, Larissa. You're welcome. Larissa, what's your language combination?
It's a Russian A, French B, and English C.
Okay. So for the French here, do you want to just follow along, or do you want to try a little bit, or?
I can try. But
okay, do you want to just try the? Do you want to try this? Je vous annonce également.
I also announce that France will finance the.
Here we go, evacuation again.
The evacuation. No,
we wouldn't say evacuation.
Evacuation of blé. No, we can evacuate blé, but maybe the destination, maybe the discharge.
I think just say the shipment of the
shipment,
or to so Dwayne was using provide will finance the provision of
the provision.
But provision, the shipment, the transfer
of Ukrainian wheat to Somalia. In regard with partnership with global food partnership.
Maybe just in line with the global food partnership. In conjunction with the go on.
We will do it in solidarity, efficiently, and in complete transparency.
Transparency, yeah, that's a nice way of doing it. Yeah, we'll do it with solidarity,
Transparency,
effectiveness,
incomplete.
and yeah, meeting demands for full transparency, and just do it in full transparency. I guess
In
you could
full
just,
transparency.
I guess
yeah.
you know, as you say, you could just maybe just delete exigence here in English. Okay, let's go back to Sterling. Let's go to this paragraph here sur le climat et la biodiversité.
Sur le climat et la biodiversité.
Sterling, please, Sterling.
He just said he can't in the chat, that he's leaving.
Oh, okay.
Do you mind if I give it a try?
Yeah, go for it.
With regards to climate and biodiversity, in a few weeks, we will meet at COP27 in Egypt. Let's be also clear on this topic of what this transition means. Our first collective battle is the eradication of CO2. The crises.
Can I just stop you there? That
Yes.
was all pretty good. I would try and stick more. So, soyons clairs là aussi sur ce qui signifie la transition juste. Try and when you're interpreting, it's so important to, again, just try and more or less stay with the speaker. Let's be clear here on the significance of a fair transition. That's one way. That's also one tactic you could adopt to keep with the syntax, rather than having to, again, memorize the words and leave them to the end. Again, if you're happy doing it that way, memorizing it and leaving the end, go for it. But again, always be thinking about how you can, chop and change, just to be able to, you're turning the verb here into a noun, and that allows you to sort of follow the syntax along. Notre premier combat, a primary collective struggle. So notre combat. What did you say for combat, Carola?
I think fight.
Fight. Okay,
fight.
I think I tend to go with, when I hear combat, it's like struggle. Fight's not wrong, but struggle tends to be, I would say, is more the sort of word that's used at a political level. Eradication of, you said CO2, yeah. Maybe you say carbon. I mean, I think, more or less comes down to the same thing. Yeah. Go on, keep going.
The crisis should not. I'm going back to changing it. The crisis should not let us lose sight of the goal.
Okay. You can just say lose direction, perdre la cap. I think, in English, they shouldn't, you can say it shouldn't throw us off. Maybe in English, the thing we'd most naturally say is shouldn't throw us off course. But yeah, so generally with le cap, it's the direction, isn't it?
Yes. If we do not overcome it, we will. Well, this is why the cap to me is the limit, like not the north, because then it says si nous non sortons pas. So if we do not, if we do not overcome this, and we will exceed predictions even beyond the 2 degrees Celsius mentioned so far.
Yeah, the 2 degrees goal, isn't it? So is the goal to keep temperature rise below 2 degrees by 2050? So it's good to know that anyway, that figure. Okay.
I am willing to invest in financing coalitions for JET, the Just Energy Transition, like we have done it, for example, in South Africa a few months ago, and we shall continue following this logic.
So one thing we're taught, as English interpreters in the English booth, like when they say logique in French, is often that doesn't work well going into English, talking about the logic. So we would probably say, and we must follow along those lines. You often talk. I remember being taught, when you hear like the French will talk about la logique de la guerre or la logique de la paix, for example, and the sort of general rule of thumb would just drop logic, just the other, war or peace. So it's like that logique. Maybe are there any French native speakers among us? But it's a bit of a French flower, I think. Are there any French natives here? French natives? Okay, but generally, I think when you hear logique in French, try and avoid the temptation to go with logic in English. Try if you know if nothing else, the best thing to do is maybe just to leave it, just to drop it. Okay,
Hi,
let me
can I
just.
cut in for a moment? Sorry,
Yes,
I'm not a French native, but I'm a Brazilian Portuguese native.
is that
and
you,
there are-
Daniel?
Yes, yeah,
Okay,
that's me.
yeah, go for it. Go on, tell us.
And there are many similarities, and we use the word lógica in Portuguese with the same kind of meaning.
Mhm.
And it's something like that line of thinking or
Yeah,
that
mindset or
rationale
something.
mindset. Yeah.
Yeah,
So along those lines is the great translation.
yeah. I always just think you want to just treat it carefully, just sort of keep it at arm's distance, almost that word, right?
Yeah,
That's
we do
good.
something similar for evacuación as well. We
Okay.
use escoamento here, which is drainage, basically. And
Okay.
all of the economists always use that word, drainage. And what they mean is they are, quote unquote, draining products down toward the seaports.
Clear. I think in English maybe clearing. Would that
Yeah,
be the
that
sort
makes
of
sense.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thank you very much for that, Daniel.
No problem.
Okay, I think let me just quickly just look if there's any words here, because the Russians need to start soon. Let me just see if there's anything that leaps out at me in the last couple of pages here. You know what droit de tirage spéciaux is, anyone?
Special drawing rights?
Correct, special drawing rights. That's a useful thing to know when it comes to trade.
And he'll usually repeat all of the conferences that he's done in the past 5 years.
There he goes again. Reallocation of the drawing rights. SDRs. I think that if you ever hear that acronym.
SDR for special drawing rights.
Yes, yeah, I think that is used as an acronym.
Yeah, and then he'll say DTS in French.
The what?
DTS in French.
Yes.
So that is les droits de tirage. Okay, that's a good thing to look out for. Right. Okay. Well, we'll stop there then with the French. I does say I very much encourage you to practice some of Macron's speeches, because that it will really improve your abilities as interpreters. So I'm gonna move on then. Who's staying for the Russian?
Not me.
Okay, so guys, Wayne, maybe you should stay after that performance.
Я не знаю. Очень плохая идея.
Well,
Bye,
guys,
guys.
those of you who joined me for the French and Spanish, it's been a pleasure having you. I hope you've learned something. Hope you found it useful. And just to let you know that I will probably be doing more of these over the next couple of months, especially in the run, because when is the exam? It's in like January or February or something.
10th of January, I think the first one.
February, something like
10th of January.
The first for the English booth, the first one is on the 10th of January, and then the second stage is the 31st.
Okay, there you go. So if you found this interesting, I will be doing more of these, and we can look at texts from other committees within the UN, from other organizations within the UN. So just follow me if you on LinkedIn. That's where I post. That's when I sort of put my announcements up when I'm going to be holding more of these. And if you're here now, and I should be, I forgot to say, if you're here now, please make sure that you have already subscribed to the Interpretation Station. That's the only fee that I charge for this. Just make sure you subscribe to the Interpretation Station. And I'd be really grateful, really, really grateful, if you could just leave a comment on any of the videos, just any video that you've watched, any episode of the Interpretation Station, and there's some vocabulary that you thought was interesting. Maybe you've thought to yourself, oh, I can do better than that. I've got a better idea for that. Please put it in, because then I can make another episode based on people's comments and contributions. That's all I ask. Okay.
Okay.
That would be greatly appreciated. So, guys, the French and Spanish, whoever's leaving us now,
Bye.
it's been
Thank you.
emotional. It's
Bye.
been emotional.
Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Bye, everyone.
Okay, so we've got Belarus. Okay. Now, I believe this guy, so he's the Belarusian foreign minister. And if I'm not mistaken, I think he died like last week or something. Is that very recently? Yeah, that's what I'd heard. So we're going to go, So I would have done Lavrov, but I've already done an episode with using the Lavrov statement. So you can just. That was what, episode 151 or 152. I actually filmed it in Sharm el Sheikh, that episode. So I thought I'd choose another one along similar lines. So the Belarusian position, well, it's like important to know where they stand. Most of this is to do about with Ukraine. So that's why I chose it. So, okay. Let me just find my pen. Okay. Well, Larissa, do you want to start us then? Kick us off? Let's go.
So, Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, it has been 6 months. The world has been living in shadow of the conflict in Ukraine. It affects a lot of people on the planet.
Okay. I mean, we'd say it's probably safe for more than half a year, for more than 6 months.
For more than 6 months.
Мировое сообщество, the international community, that
the
sort of
stock
UN stock political language, the international community has been living in the shadow of the conflict in Ukraine. Go on, do the next paragraph as well, please.
So the conflict, like the COVID-19 pandemic, that once again revealed the downside of global interdependence.
Okay, they are the downside, the negative side, like the предшествующее, you could say, as well as the COVID pandemic that preceded it, before it. You know what? There's an argument for saying just drop. Everyone knows what pandemic it was. Like the pandemic that preceded it, yet again exposed the negative side of global interdependence. Go on, do the last paragraph on this page as well, Larissa.
And this session provides a unique opportunity to take stock of this situation.
Well, that's a good idea, right? To take stock of this factor. I mean, I'll probably just stay with you could say to assess this factor. Take stock of this factor. Okay. Malika, why don't you do page 2?
Let's answer 2 questions impartially and honestly. The answers to them, just as the necessary actions to be taken based on that, are expected from us UN member states by everyone on this planet.
Okay. That all sounds good. And the resulting, if you want to sort of if you want to give a word for вытекающие, I guess you could say, and the resulting necessary actions.
First of all, what are the root causes of the conflict in Ukraine? Secondly, what must be done in order to stop it and prevent anything similar happening again?
Okay, or prevent a repeat of anything similar in future. Larissa and Nina, feel free to stop at any point. Malika's going to go quite fast through this, so she does. This is her bread and butter. This is what she does every day now. So, but just feel free at any point to stop and ask any questions. Okay.
Disclaimer: I have a terrible migraine, so I'm not going to go quite that fast.
Okay.
President, we are convinced that the conflict in Ukraine is the result of more general geopolitical chaos, the causes of which must be sought in events from 30 years ago.
Okay, so one thing I always say, by the way, like if you've got a long statement and you're struggling to keep up, when the speaker breaks off into one of these господин председатель, дамы и господа, sometimes I'll just drop that completely. I'll just take that opportunity just to take a big breath of air and then just wait for him to continue again, because you don't really lose anything by it. So that's a tip I always give.
Whenever you have these in the middle, you want to say at the start, obviously, but then once he's in the middle of it, then they're sort of you can leave it out without much difficulty. We're convinced conflict goes up. Price chodit is stems from, what did you say, Malika? What was the word you used?
I think is the result of.
Is the result of, okay. The reasons which go back to events of 30 years ago. We've gone to do a little bit more.
History shows that historical wars that end in unfair and humiliating peace contain the root of future conflicts.
I was thinking right in English, epochalnie wojny. And I was thinking, geez, I couldn't, in English, we don't really have.
Yeah, there's no equivalent.
There's no equivalent, and something did come. So I was thinking in English, we talk about just big wars. History teaches us that big wars that end with unfair, humiliating peace. And then what was the like earth-shattering? Because they do use it quite a bit. This idea I've noticed in Russian, epochalnie sabitia or epochalnie vojny.
Milestones.
See, that doesn't sound right.
You're not going to say a milestone war.
No.
Historic, maybe historic. No,
it's not quite that. That doesn't sound right in English.
Major wars.
Major war.
Earth-shattering is good, I think.
There was something that came to me over breakfast this morning. Literally came over breakfast. I was thinking it's not monumental. Jeez, I had it this morning. But major wars is good. Earth-shattering. I'll have to think about it. Maybe by the time I come to producing the episode, it will have come back to me. Okay. Tajet v себе. Sorry, my son just wrote something and momentous. What do you think, ladies? Momentous?
Momentous wars as good as anything else.
Sandy, come and take a bow. Come on, don't be shy. Come on, son. Take a bow. There you go, son. That's the man.
Hi,
there you go.
Nice to meet you.
Wave. There you go.
Hi.
I'll call you if there's anything else you need. If anything else, Sonny. History teaches the momentous war. Okay, Tajet v себе zrna would carry within them the seed of future conflicts. Maybe sow the seed. We talk about sowing the seed of future conflict as well. Okay. But yeah, it's good to have something for that epochalnie wojny anyway. Okay, let's try Nina. Давайте посмотрим.
You're sure? My English is passive. I'd rather not.
You'd rather not?
I know Nina. We know each other from the FTI, and I think she should give it a try if she feels comfortable.
No pressure, Nina.
The first time interpreting into English. And yeah, right away it's going on YouTube. Cool.
I can edit it if you want.
Yes, I want.
But I'm sure it'll be good. Come on, let's hear what you have.
Let's see what peace we got after the end of the last major war, the Cold War.
Epic. What about epic?
Yeah.
Epic.
For me, it's like qui marque l'époque. I say it in French just because it's my active language.
I think epic.
For me.
And it's nice and short as well. Epic.
Okay, I don't see the next paragraph.
Судя по всему,
yeah, thank you. The so-called winners, euphoric winners, didn't take into account the examples from the past.
Yeah, so what's the best of судя по всему? How was the best way of putting that into English?
Apparently.
Oh, that could work actually. What would you say, Malika?
It appears that.
Yeah, I was going to say when I hear судя по всему, I say by the looks of things. So yeah, any of those.
The so-called
winners or victors,
winners.
the winners or victors. We would probably say in English, podvozdействием euphoria, we'd probably say just in their euphoria. In their euphoria, didn't see fit to draw on examples from the past, for example. Okay. Have a rest, Nina. That was good. That was good. I mean,
thank you.
Okay, should we go back to Larissa? Larissa?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. So I continue.
Yep.
And they could have followed in the footsteps of Alexander first, or the first.
Alexander the First.
Alexander the First. Metternich,
yeah.
Metternich, and Castlereagh.
I don't know who that last guy is.
I don't know.
I know who Alexander the First. I know who Metternich is. I don't know who. Anyone? Any? Malika? Nina?
I have no idea.
I've heard the name. He's a statesman from, I think, the 18th, 19th century, something like that.
Italian?
No, Castlereagh. It's spelled Castle and then R-E-A-G-H.
Castlereagh.
Castlereagh.
Castlereagh. I see in the Wikipedia. She said that usually known as Lord Castlereagh, but she's politician and statesman, Anglo-Irish politician and statesman.
There you go. There you go.
So
go on then. Эти великие миротворцы.
Those great peacemakers of the early 19th century successfully integrated their adversary.
No adversary. Okay, that's very high register.
Into the new security system, and thus established lasting peace in Europe for decades to come.
Okay, that's good.
To come.
One thing I'd say, effectively, you said successfully integrated. I wouldn't worry. I wouldn't play around. I would just say effectively would be fine. I think in English, effectively integrated their Protivnik, you said adversary, their opponent, into a new system of security, and so doing established a lasting peace in Europe for decades to come. Okay, let's go. Malika's going to now rip through a couple of paragraphs at high speed.
Right. They could also have been inspired by the example of cooperation set by the Big Three from World War II, Stalin, Roosevelt, and Churchill, who created mechanisms that significantly reduced chances of wars arising between great powers.
Okay, so just it's good to have получить вдохновение just as a collocation to draw inspiration. That's good, say collocation to have. Significantly reduce the possibility of the big power, the big великих держав, the big powers.
Superpowers.
Yeah. Entering to and going to war between themselves. Yeah. Go on.
However, Western politicians in the early 90s unfortunately picked the most inglorious and hopeless option, which was
Běslavný. So the word I had was ignominious.
Ooh, good word.
Ignominious. Inglorious is good though as well. Yeah.
Option.
And perspective. What do you say? Hopeless.
Hopeless or unpromising, but it doesn't seem aggressive enough.
Futile is a good word to have for because again that's a word they use a lot. I think in Russian, perspectivny. So yeah, futile, hopeless.
Which was the path of the Versailles diplomats from 1990 who decided to crush or trample over their key opponents.
Yeah, that's all good. That's pretty wild. Yeah, for us, toptatuna here, I tend to go with trample over.
Yeah. Let's start with the fact that the Cold War did not even end with an official agreement. It ended with a certain gentleman's agreement and declarations.
So the one thing I'd say here is for dogovor, I would always say treaty. Like, I think that's something I was sort of told, like соглашение agreement, doговоренность arrangement. So here, we say gentleman's agreement.
That works here because you've got gentleman's agreement and then you want something different for comparison.
Just here, but just generally, my rule of thumb is договор, treaty, соглашение, agreement, договоренность, arrangement. That is my general rule of thumb.
Then in this case, do we have gentleman's
because the
agreement
thing is
arrangement?
because the Cold War didn't end with a there was no treaty that ended. So I think it's a bit more than just an agreement. That's why I said it's a treaty. But no, with gentlemanski, that's a sort of set expression, right? A gentleman's agreement. So here, I think it's fine to use agreement for doговоренность in this case.
Subsequent events showed us that these agreements were not adhered to by the so-called winning side. They essentially were just Versailles 2.0.
Okay. Versailles Mark II.
Mark II.
Whatever. Do a little bit, maybe go this paragraph as well, and then.
The West egoistically proposed post-Soviet states only one option, the option of being satellites.
Yeah, egotistic, probably egoistično, I'd probably say selfishly. Yeah, it sounds a bit better in it. Egotistically sometimes can sound a bit weird in English. So they selfishly proposed to the states of the post-Soviet space. So you can say in English, I will often talk about the post-Soviet space. That's a perfectly legitimate expression. So you could do it the way that Malika did. He just offered the post-Soviet states, or you could say the states from the post-Soviet space. Both are fine. Go on.
To consolidate this status, the West banked on the expansion of one of the key institutions of the Cold War, NATO, the military bloc.
Yes.
Expanding NATO.
So on Stiel Stavku, so they banked on. Okay. Sometimes I'll just say, they placed emphasis on, they focused on. That's what Malika says is good.
NATO's eastward expansion was carried out despite the agreements reached with the West, including with Soviet leaders.
Now, just by this time, I'd have probably reverted back to using my arrangements for doговоренность. By this point.
Yeah. The legitimate interests of Russia and Belarus, hang on, now I've got to redo that. Legitimate security interests of both Russia and Belarus were ignored.
Okay, how would you do that last sentence, but without leaving the ignored till the end? Again, this is like similar to what we're saying in the Spanish. I as a rule, I like to just try and process the words as I'm coming to them and try and minimize the amount of times that I have to memorize something and tag it on at the end.
They ignored.
They ignored.
Because we know who we're talking about.
We know who, exactly. So you can sort of make a legitimate guess. You can almost, and a very educated guess. This is all about what they did. So they probably ignored. How would you finish it?
They ignored the legitimate security interests of both Russia and Belarus.
Okay. And if you want to play really safe when going into English for Russian with those kinds of things.
The legitimate interests related to security of Russia and Belarus.
I'm just saying for Billy Praignorировani, if you want to play really safe, you go in with a there was. There was neglect for, there was disdain for, there was disdain for the legitimate interests. Just in case sometimes you take that route, you assume it's going to be they ignored, but then it turns out that the subject is someone else, and that can shit. Then
you could, I suppose, also say left ignored or left.
You could left ignored were yeah.
If you want to be really safe and avoid any sort of actually.
I think the best thing was, as I say, I think the intelligent guess that you can make, they ignored the legitimate interests, security interests, whatever, of Russia and Belarus. Nina, are you up for trying another little bit?
Yeah, let's go. Let's try it.
All right.
In this regard, I would like to recall a brilliant American diplomat, George Kennan, whose political prophecies were so applauded by Western politicians. Why in this case, didn't they listen to his well-known warning when in 1996 he condemned NATO's expansion as a huge strategic mistake?
Okay, that's well pretty good. Vietisvizi, so if you're in a hurry, so I know you said here, what did you say in that regard?
I said in this regard.
Yeah,
like
so if you're in a hurry in English, you can just say here, and here I'd like to recall the outstanding American diplomat George Kennan, whose foreign political prophecies, that's really good for prorochestvo. I was thinking predictions, but prophecies is actually better and easier to remember, in fact, because you got prorochestvo, prophecy, are so, I'd say, are so admired by Western politicians. Why didn't they? For Prislushivets, my sort of stock solution tends to be to heed. Okay, why didn't they heed Kennan's famous warning when in '96 he condemned the expansion of NATO as a strategic mistake of potentially epic? There's our word of the day: epic proportions. Do you want to try the other next paragraph as well, Nina, since you did that one pretty well?
Yeah, I'm feeling courageous.
Yeah, that's it. You're on a roll now.
Yeah. Through NATO's expansion, the West violated the core principle of indivisibility of security.
Indivisible security.
Indivisible security, according to which one side's security can't be what? Can't be assured and
guaranteed, I think is the word we go for.
Yeah.
Guaranteed.
I like the vocabulary here. Can't be guaranteed in like if I saw it in English, I would translate it into Russian immediately.
Yeah, I know.
But the other way around, not the same thing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
At the expense of.
At the expense, yeah. That's correct.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Of the screwer. So my son, he's the cheeky sort. He keeps giving me these cards. Momentous word of the day. Okay. Joint word of the day. So I bet you all remember momentous now. Next time you go to the meeting, you've got to try and use the word momentous, okay? And then report back to me on how. So
yeah, one side's security can't be guaranteed at the expense of another one.
Okay, so that's sort of typical sort of, that's what they always say, the Russians, the Belarusians, don't they? Let me just go. Was there anything else I wanted to so through the expansion of NATO, the West? Yeah, popral, I'll often, for whatever reason, I always tend to say to flout, just because there's a different, I'll say for narushenia, that's when I'll violate. But for whatever reason, when I hear paprat, I'll tend to use the word to flout. The crucial principle of indivisible security, which says that the security of one party cannot be guaranteed at the expense of another. Okay. Got about maybe 5 minutes left. So I'll tell you what, Larissa, why don't you try this paragraph? Logical.
Yeah, sure. Okay. The negotiators in
can you try and follow the English the word order?
Okay. This logic was well understood by the negotiators in 1850 and in 1945, but it wasn't accepted by world leaders in 19 in 1919 and in 1991.
Malika, do you have a go-to word for vоспринимать?
Accept. They didn't want to accept it.
Right. See, the one I tend to embrace tends to be the one
Embraced.
that wasn't embraced by global leaders in 1919 and 1991. Accept's not wrong. I think
No, embrace is good.
a sort of notch, a sort of register
Because
higher.
embrace is also a little bit more, they're more active about it, whereas accept is just
more passive, isn't it? Yeah. So that's a good one to have. Go ahead and then try this paragraph as well, Larissa, and then we'll finish with Malika. We'll go for another sprint to the end. So go.
NATO's implication in the illegitimate wars against Yugoslavia, Iraq, Libya, and Syria, as well as the alliance's attempt to enter the historic Slavic East lands and neighboring lands, all of it predestined
yeah, it's tricky how to put this into English.
Predestined Versailles, predestined the fate of Versailles to no, predestined the fate of Versailles 1.
Versailles 2 to the same fate as Versailles 1.
Yes,
I mean,
fate.
I would say, so you say, okay, the involvement of NATO. I mean, with Uchasti, I wouldn't play around with that. Just say the participation of NATO in the legitimate wars against Yugoslavia, Iraq, Libya, and Syria, and the alliance's attempts to enter the historic Eastern Slavic and adjacent lands, contiguous lands. In English, we'd probably say doomed Versailles 2 as it had doomed Versailles 1. I think the verb may be preordained for Versailles 2 the same fate as for Versailles 1. But yes, preopredeliť судьбу would probably be preordained the fate, but it's So you want the idea of condemned. Versailles, we would say to condemn Versailles 2 to the same fate as Versailles 1. So those are the sort of words you want in that context, doomed, fate, condemned. Okay, let's finish off with then. So Malika is going to rattle through a page. So off you go. So Malika, Larissa, Malika's gonna do it for us.
And so the responsibility for the ongoing bloodshed in Ukraine is fully on the shoulders of the collective West.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say the blame. Therefore,
the blame lies fully on the
blame, one syllable, responsibility. That's 6 syllables. So just go with the blame,
And so the blame for the ongoing bloodshed in Ukraine lies fully on the shoulders of the collective West.
Or is fully borne by the collective West, is fully shouldered by the collective West, or what? Yeah, any of those sort of variations.
It was the West that made this conflict inevitable, not just through their decision to expand NATO, but also their refusal to consider proposals from their opponents. And there were such proposals. That begs the question, what to do now?
Very good. It begs, that's classic sort of, English. It begs, you could say it raises the question, but that's for the top register. It begs the question.
Indeed, in 2009, Russia suggested that the interested parties sign a new treaty on European security, which would have de jure ended the Cold War. The West rejected this proposal.
The действительно is one of those words I'm tempted to, if I'm in a hurry, to drop. At the start, it's like just in 2009, Russia proposed to the zainteresованim stronom, maybe just say to the parties. Again, if you're in a hurry, the interested parties is fine, but often we'll just in English talk about the parties. sign a new. What do you say for Dogovor? A new treaty? You said
I said treaty.
You said treaty. European security. Okay, rejected that proposal. Okay.
In 2017, the president of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko, came forward with an initiative to hold a global dialogue on security and proposed Minsk as the location for negotiation. The opponents ignored this initiative too.
Okay, Plashadka, or Plashadka often just go with forum. I mean, what you said is find the location. Again, it's one of those cases where
platform,
one of those
platforms
maybe best actually. A platform, yeah, that's nice.
Last December, the Russian Federation made yet another attempt to reach an agreement with the West on the issue of European security, but this time the West remained, I don't want to say deaf to new Russian proposals, but
close. What's the sort of
refused to listen.
I think the best thing to say is maybe turned a deaf ear
to new Russian.
I mean, or just ignored. You could just say ignore. You know, it's one of those things. If the best solution doesn't come to you in the moment, you've got to just resort to a sort of versatile solution. So you could just say,
turned a blind eye. Turned a blind eye
to new Russian proposals. I think here it's more a case of turning a deaf ear. It's close. The other one thing I was going to say, you just say Russia again. I don't think you need to say the Russian Federation.
Depending, I suppose, on I haven't heard the original here. I don't know how fast he was speaking.
I don't know how fast he spoke in the original either. I'm just saying, as a general rule, I don't think, as a general rule, I mean, if you're worried about it, you say Russian Federation maybe the first time around in the statement, and then
I will
just
say
revert
though
to
that
Russia.
this has come up in a meeting where.
Was it last week?
But no, it was before Egypt, where the full country name has to be.
Did the Russian delegation make an objection because someone else?
It was something to do with, I think, Russia, and it was to use the full name.
This came up last week in a meeting I was in. Yes, in the Biological Weapons Convention, and so they were saying to the Ukrainians, please address us by our full name. I mean, I don't think as a general rule they would care that much, but because obviously of the rather unusual circumstances, shall we say, that they're making a point of that here. But as a general rule, I don't think it's that important. But what I say, maybe a rule is the first time, give them the full name, and then after that, you should be fine just saying Russia, Russia, Russia. Okay, ladies, that is going to be all for today.
Great, thank you so much, Roland.
I hope you've enjoyed this workshop. Larissa, Nina, it's been lovely.
Useful.
I'm glad. I'm very pleased you could make it. Malika, I'll probably see you tomorrow.
I don't know.
As I say, I'll probably be holding these in future every week, but every Sunday, but Sunday at 6. I call them Sunday at 6 workshops, so it's easy to remember when and at what time they're going to be held. So just follow me on LinkedIn, and do just leave me a comment somewhere on one of the episodes. That'd be really greatly appreciated.
And here I am again, literally 1 minute after filming the introduction. I'm now filming the conclusion. So that was really useful. That was a really good workshop that we had. Please do keep your eye out for any more announcements. I might do this one, another one this Sunday, or certainly the Sunday after that. Just keep following me on the LinkedIn for new announcements. And make sure you check out that website I gave you during the workshop, to do with the model UN, because that's a really good idiot's guide, if you like, for the structure of the UN, how the UN works. You can find all the useful sort of vocabulary, organizational vocabulary. It was the first time I'd run into it when I started looking at it there, and so I really do recommend you go and take a look at that, especially if you're not if you're not as familiar with work at the UN, and perhaps you're going to do this exam coming up in January. I think that's going to give you, that website can give you a lot of good pointers. So again, just to remind you, share, subscribe, and comment, and nothing else left to be said other than that episode 154 of the Interpretation Station stands adjourned.